Spencer. We're swapped around again.
Huh?
We're swapped around again.
Yep, I know you do it on purpose. There we go.
Here we are in the flesh.
Here we are. Hey, is Squirrel even in chat? I don't know. I don't see her.
She's playing Jungle Jane today or something. I don't know what.
All right. Well, I see whatever. I guess, there's 36, 37 people watching right now. And hello, everybody, to everyone that's in chat. And Squirrel might be along directly. She might not. She's got a lot of stuff going on today. If nothing else, she'll probably jump in chat. But anyway, thank you to everybody that's here. Thank you for the moderators being here. And let's get this going. So let me tell you, if you don't know Tim Dills or Dwight Campbell or Bob Trent, these guys, they formed Dirty South Squatching a little while ago. And I've been following Dwight's channel for years now, and I've been wanting to talk to them, and Tim is the first one up the bat. So without further ado, let me bring out Mr. Dills. Tim, how you doing, sir?
Doing good, guys. How about you?
Good. So I'm excited about this show because this man, like a handful of people that I know, actually gets his butt out in the woods and does the real stuff. And he's documenting stuff, and he's going all over the place. So he's had a lot of experience. So I'm not going to keep talking. I'm going to let him talk. And y'all, pay attention to what he says and compare the stuff that he talks about to like Greg's experiences whenever Greg first had like this thing happen, or Kevin Ashby or other people. This, again, it follows a similar pattern. I'm just saying. But anyway, Tim, all right, now take your time because you got a lot of stuff to talk about, and go from the very get-go about how you got into this, pretty please. The very first thing that happened.
Okay. First, I want to say I was watching the introduction to your show. That's the coolest one I've ever seen.
Well, thank you. That's from our buddy Chris Reinhardt. He made that for us. Hey, Robbie.
I was sitting here thinking, I hope this don't end. That's pretty fun sitting there watching that. But, the way I got into it, I was outside my house cleaning a deer. I'd killed an 8-point, and I had it up on the rack of skinning it and all of that.
What year?
That would be, I would say, probably around the late part of 2007, the best I can remember. And this guy pulls up.
And hold on. Whereabouts? What parts?
I'm in Macon County, North Carolina. And the town is called Franklin. And I'm outside skinning my deer, and this guy pulls up that I've never seen before in my life. And he comes running over there, and I'm up like this, and you just have to know the guy. Bless his heart, he's passed on now, but he was my best friend from that point up until he passed. He come up to me, and he just wide open. My name's Corbett. I live up here. I just bought land up here, and I see you like to hunt and fish. I like to hunt and fish, so I'm going to come back down in a couple of weeks. We'll get together and we'll go hunting and fish. And I got property, blah, 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 blah. And I'm trying to skin that deer, and I'm like, yeah, okay, whatever. And he takes off. And my wife walks up and said, who in the world was that? I said, well, I got his name is Newsom Corbett. He just moved up from Florida. He's going to be a neighbor up the hill. He likes to hunt and fish. and his wife's family has property in another part of the county that they would come up maybe once or twice a year and got a little cabin on it, and they would stay at the cabin for a weekend, and then they'd go back to Florida. So the property up there was visited, I'd say at the most 3 times a year. But he's moved up and he bought a house above us, and he's wanting to make it a spot where him and his boys and myself was included, that we could go up there and hunt and, get off the public land and all of that. They got about, I think it was 85 acres of land that they own. And it's completely surrounded by Forest Service, but the only way you can get to it is through a Forest Service gate. So they had a key to the gate and all of that. And I got to know him, and he told me, he said, I want you to help me put up feeders and that kind of stuff, and we'll just make us a nice little hunting spot up there. And I said, okay, that sounds great. So like I said, about 2 weeks, he came and picked me up, and we took off fishing and got to know each other. And we started working on the property and, hanging feeders and putting out, we like to use deer cane. It works real good. So we was putting that kind of stuff out. And he told me, he said, well, we have got to get my boys back. And I said, okay, what's happened? He said a couple of years ago, while they was up here, they had took a pair of fallow deer horns out of the cabin and snuck up to his trail camera. And that was back when trail cameras was 35 millimeter. And they stuck around and stuck the horns in front of the trail camera. And him and his wife was in Walmart getting them developed. And first one he sees is those fallow deer horns in his trail camera. So he grabbed his wife, said, I've got to get beanie weenies, veinies, all that stuff. I ain't coming out of that tree stand till I kill that thing, because them ain't normal around here. And right. I mean, yeah, you just have to know Newsom. He's wide open from daylight to dark. And he's thinking of all the stuff he's got to get. And I ain't coming down. I don't care if I have to stay up there all year long. I'm going to kill this thing. And his wife said, if you looked at any of the other pictures, I don't need to look at pictures. I say, this is all I need to see. And she kept on. Well, finally, the very next picture was his boy and their friend, his 3 boys and their friends standing in front of the trail camera with them horns. And he said, we have got to pay them back. And I said, okay, that ain't no problem. And I told him, I said, back in the 70s, my dad and one of his buddies up here in a place in Macon County called Standing Indian. It's a big campground on National Forest. And they was in the 70s, they was up there hunting in the snow, and they come back to their vehicle, and they started noticing, back then you had to get in the woods at 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning to get somewhere to hunt. So they had got out early that morning. Well, they noticed walking back out that there's somebody walking barefooted. And Daddy's buddy is about, I say he's probably 6'5", 6'6", about 350-pound big guy.
You
and
mean they found a track?
Yeah, just a bare footprint. And Daddy's buddy could put his boot inside of that footprint. And back then, we didn't think nothing about Bigfoot or nothing like that. We thought some idiot was running around barefooted in the snow. And I happened to think of that, and I told Newsom, I said, well, my daddy, him and his buddy come across a footprint back up in the woods in the 70s. I said, I've got some decking boards there at the house, so I'll cut us out some, and I've got an old pair of shoes. We'll screw them to it, and we'll come up here and we'll put some tracks out like there's a Bigfoot up here. So I took my time, and I rounded the edges and the toes. Everything looked good, and we just made all kinds of junk. We jumped up and broke laurel limbs that big around, took both of us to break and all that stuff, and we're just goofing off, thinking we're going to play a good joke on them. And I told him, I said, whenever whenever you bring the boys were staying at the cabin, but he would go up with them when they come up, and they had walked the property and just be together. And I told him, I said, I can't be with you. I said, because I'll get to laughing. I can't I can't stand it. And so he said, okay. So they went and they walked right by the track. I mean, I had them 16 inches long and as wide as that decking board, as wide as I could make them. And they walked by it, didn't even see it. And he told them, said, yeah, you ain't getting me on this. And they said, what? He said, this track. He said, you just got me on the deer horns. You ain't getting me on the nothing. And they walked back there and they freaked out. Oh, Lord, Dad, we didn't do that. And he's like, yeah, you ain't going to fool me again. So he's just adding to it, Right. And next thing you know, they're going ballistic. Dad, we've got Bigfoot on our property. We've got to get trail cameras. We can make millions of dollars off the pictures. We can get all of this stuff. And they had a band that they had a gig that they had to play that night. So while they was actually going to cancel that gig, and Newsom told them, said, no, you don't give the guy your word that you would be there. You are going to that gig. So while they went to that, I snuck back up there and got my shoes, and I also done some more stuff. I turned lawn chairs over and throw clothes everywhere and just making a big mess like something had been in there, just playing a good joke on them. And they come in 2:30 that morning and their stuff thrown everywhere and clothes on the roof. And so they call him at 2:30, Dad, that thing's been back. What are we going to do? It's saying in your face. I mean, it tore everything up while we was gone. So the next day, they finally figured out that we done it. So it was, a big ha-ha joke and all of that stuff. Well, a week or two after that, Newsom told me, he said, I've got a big wild hog that's rooting my yard up at the cabin, and we need to get up in the attic and see if we can kill it. And I told him, I said, okay, since you're on that close to Forest Service and behind the gates and stuff, I'll bring my crossbow up and we'll shoot it. And then that way, it won't be bother nobody and nobody will think we're up our deer hunting and stuff. So that was on a Monday night. We went up there and we're setting up in the loft of their cabin, and we've got the screen off the window and window raised, and we're sitting there and 3 raccoons come out. And those 3 raccoons come out and started just playing around the yard and feeding, and because it's swampy. On one side of his property, it sets in a V. He's got a small branch on one side and a pretty good sized creek on the other side. So and it comes together right there where the coons and stuff was at. And we're sitting up there watching them coons. Well, all of a sudden, they just take off after they've been feeding for about 10, 15 minutes. They take off back into the woods, into the laurels. And then we hear something grab one of them. And I know you guys know what it sounds like when a coon's fighting something, the squall that it makes.
Yeah.
Well, it does that. And then all of a sudden you just hear a big, and everything goes dead quiet. And I looked at him. I said, buddy boy, I've seen a black panther. I've seen the red wolves. I don't know what this is. I said, that ain't a bear, because it didn't make a sound like a bear did. I said, and it ain't a dog because it ain't barked. I said, but something grabbed that coon and killed it. And I have no idea what it is. And so we just sat there listening, and just a few minutes after that, it started whistling. And I told him, I said, now that don't make no sense on anything that I know of, because I don't know of anything that, number one, is going to grab a coon up like that, kill it, and then start whistling. I said, it ain't a bird. I said, that roar definitely didn't come from a bird. And so we're sitting there, and we're sitting there, and it whistled the whole time we sat there. Now, we had all the lights off in the house because with outside light, we didn't need it. And we waited on the hog to come out. Well, whatever that, we know now that it was one of the Bigfoots, but at the time we didn't know what it was. And it just kept whistling. Well, as soon as we turned that light on to go from upstairs downstairs, the whistling stopped. We go outside, we don't hear nothing, don't see nothing. We just didn't know what it was.
Tim, not to interrupt you, but how many times did it whistle? And was it a monotone whistle?
Yeah, it was. If my mouth's dry, so I don't know if I can do it, but it was and that was all it was, just
a single.
Yeah, just deeper than what I can do it, but it was just that. And it done it probably, well, we sat up there for probably 5 minutes of it doing that, just every 10, 15, 20 seconds it would do it. And it done that the whole time until we turned the light on in the house. And as soon as we turned that to come from upstairs, downstairs, it quit whistling.
He did. He's in a little town called Franklin, North Carolina. What did you say the county was, Tim?
Macon County.
Macon County.
Yeah.
Austin.
And so that was our very first encounter with it. We still didn't, of course, we didn't have no idea what it was at the time. And then things started happening. We would be going up to one of the deer feeders and get yelled at, screamed at, that kind of stuff. And we're trying to figure out, what in the world is going on. We come in and at one point they had broke a white oak limb that bigger than about the size of a big cantaloupe. They had wrung that off and carried it in, and it green and full of leaves and acorns and all that stuff. And to this day, we ain't figured out where they carried it in from. But they're doing all of that across our trails, and every time we go up there, we're having to clean our trails up. We're having to get stuff out of our trails. We're getting yelled at and all of that stuff. And that went on for years.
Well, hey, hold on now, Tim. Hold on. I saw you do a couple of interviews, Tim. You're going to skip over all these details now. So,
what's up, Spencer?
Hold on. I got to pick your brain. So,
that's
for a couple years, you had stuff placing branches and brush across the trails that you would walk in there and hear odd noises, get screamed at and everything?
Yes, sir. And that's the we're still thinking what to do in this. We're leaning towards it has to be a Bigfoot, because whatever is ripping these branches and stuff off have to have imposable thumbs because they're twisting them. There are no bite marks. There's no claw marks. There's nothing like that. And the yells and screams and stuff like that wasn't nothing, bobcats, coyotes, they make all kind of weird sounds and you hear all that, but we knew that this was nothing, nothing like any of those things.
Yeah. Well, on the property y'all were on, was it what kind of terrain? I mean, I'm sure there it was probably hilly and hardwood, pines. What kind of?
Actually, it was mostly hardwoods and laurels, and steep. They wasn't the only place that you didn't have to go uphill was when you walked up the steps into the cabin. Everything else was steep.
What, was it thick laurel? A lot of laurel everywhere.
Yeah. Now they had some pretty spots that, about like anywhere, you're going to have a little patch of woods here that's open and a little patch there. But up here, the laurel around the ridges, laurel thickets on ridges is just, you get down on your hands and knees and crawl through.
Well, let me ask you this: like when y'all was having these encounters before y'all could actually lay eyes on one, were they kind of standoffish, or would they get up pretty close to you when they was making all the noise and stuff?
They was the very first yell that that I ever heard that we knew, this is what it's got to be. It done the yell like Bobo does on the big long drawed out. Right. That. And once we heard that, that was the first yell that we actually heard. And from that point on, we're thinking that's got to be what this is, because I'd watch Finding Bigfoot and all of that stuff, but to hear that yell, and it was so loud, I would say it was within 70 yards of us, and your whole body just vibrated from it.
Did I ever tell you the story about Kumbo doing a yell, and then the damn thing yelled back and was probably only 100 yards away, and it was really loud, and he didn't tell nobody he was going to do a yell. But anyway, hey, for everybody that's watching the show, Tim and Kumbo know each other, and that's why Kumbo was going to jump on here, and Kumbo's being part of the host series in this. Kumbo, you always eating whenever we get you on the show. Always eating. Damn it.
He falls away.
Don't worry, he'll get back on if he can.
I will have to say this about Kumbo. When we was down in Alabama, when I first met him, now that man can cook. I don't blame him for eating all the time. He's a good cook.
Right. Oh, wait. Hold on. He's trying to. Here we go.
There
you go.
So y'all met in Alabama. What were y'all at an outing or?
Yeah, it was Jonathan Odom. We met down there. He was having something for, I think his group's Alabama Paranormal and Bigfoot or something like that.
Something like that.
He'd invited us down. And before that, I'd never met Kumbo. I'd heard Dwight talk about him, and I'd stuff like that. But then when I got to meet him, I mean, you talk about, I don't know a drop in the bucket compared to what he knows. I mean,
we met down there at down at Mark's place at the hunters camp there in that management area is where we met.
Oh, damn. Well,
yeah.
Good luck. Damn, what is going on? Is it the internet all over? Is it StreamYard? I don't know what is going on.
Something's going crazy. But hey, Tiffany, we definitely, everybody keep Tiffany in your prayers. I'll have to call her after I'll check.
And Christy.
Yes.
Christy Leslie tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
Y'all got a major as major as it gets surgery. So keep that in mind. Everybody think about her and pray for her.
Yes.
Sorry, Tim.
But that's how we got started on it. And there's so much stuff that went on. It's hard to remember everything, because every time we went up there, we was having something done, something new to clean up, getting yelled at and screamed at and all of that stuff. And like I was saying, after about the first 2.5, 3 years, we was getting yelled at a lot. After that, the yelling and screaming seemed to calm down, but they were still, every time we would go, they had been putting something in our trails and all of that stuff.
Tim, I got a question.
Okay.
Did you said that this guy was your neighbor, right? He moved in.
Yeah.
And his land bordered your land?
No, it borders Forest Service land.
Okay. Well, how far away from your property did this guy move in?
Now his house that he lived in, not where the cabin was, where their property was, but he moved up above me. I can sit on his deck and see my house.
Okay. So the property that you're talking about is different than where he moved in.
Yeah.
Okay.
He moved into a house above me, but their property was on another part of the county. From where me and him live, I'd say it's probably 10, 15 miles from here.
Okay, I got you, because I was getting ready to ask you if you had ever had anything happen at your own house right there. But you're saying he moved in right near you and came down and met you, and y'all went to his property that was 10, 15 miles away.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now here at the house, like one night, way back on the mountain above us, man, it was probably, I think, 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. And I walked out on the deck for something, and I heard a scream up on the mountain, and I come and got my wife. I said, come here, because I don't have the best hearing. And I said, come here and see if this is what I think I'm hearing. So we have heard them, but, it was way back up on top of the mountain.
Sure.
But the property that we were going into is about, I'd say, at least 15 miles from here.
And that property is bordered by state land, federal land?
It's game land, Forest Service, Nantahala National Forest.
Oh, okay.
Game land is completely around it.
Right.
So
now, Anthony and I go to Nantahala and Cherokee all the time. Okay. All right.
Where you're at, if I'm thinking right, you're not very far from like northeast Georgia, right?
No, I'm not far at all. I can be down in Rayburn County, Georgia in 30 minutes.
Right.
Okay.
And I can be in South Carolina in 45.
Okay.
Yeah. This is all the same area. It's that same trail. It's that same mountainous range. How far are you from the Appalachian Trail?
Let's see. We're probably the closest spot that you can get on it, probably maybe 20 miles.
Right. Okay. All right. We're all in the same area. George White. Hello, Al. How are you, brother? Anyway, so all this stuff went on for years with you getting branches broke and stuff placed across the trail, hearing noises, all that kind of stuff. So let's get to the good stuff. When did you were one of the other guy, when did it actually pop off where you saw something major happened?
I guess that would be, we was up there when we put our deer feeders up, we hang it on the cable between 2 trees. And then we'll take in 8-foot sheets of tin and a ladder, and we'll nail it around the tree. That way a bear can't climb it,
right,
get to the feeder.
Mm-hmm.
And we went up there, and the only thing it could have been. So we're talking, at least 11 feet off the ground, the tin is, to the top of it. And we went in, and the top's pulled away from the tree. There's no other thing that could have done that besides a Sasquatch. There's nothing tall enough a bear couldn't get to it, because we bear-proofed it. That's the reason we put the tin around the tree.
Yeah. Because
they couldn't climb the tin. We would pick it up about 3 feet off the ground. That way we made sure, if a bear got on the upper side of it, if it's only 8 foot, it could, with the right angle, it could get a hold of the tree and pull itself up. But so we always made sure our tin was high enough to where no bear could get to it. And it actually cut its hand when it pulled it from the tree, because there was blood on the tin.
Oh, wow.
And that's when we're thinking, they ain't nothing. It has to be, it has to be something that's got hands that can reach and pull that. And some of the stuff that was, like I was saying, the limbs we found that was twisted off. One time I went into mine, and there was a pine top about that big around was drove down in the ground. So, you know, we knew that it has to be something with hands. They ain't nobody that stout. So if you take all, you know, you ain't left with nothing but a Bigfoot. That's all it could be.
Yeah.
And we was up there putting in a deer stand. We had one of our neighbors that knew some give him permission to come up. So he's way back on the property, back at the very back of it. And I took my 4-wheeler and we took his stand in there and was going to put it together for him and his boy. Well, him and his boys down to fixing them a feeder and all that. And me and Newsom's up there putting the stand together. And all of a sudden, here comes a stick through the tops of the trees.
Mm-hmm.
And Newsom got his pistol and he walked out there and he said, I can't find what it throwed, but, you know, there ain't no doubt what it is. And he's out there looking around because he wanted to find the stick that it threw. And I'm still putting the stand together. And like I say, I don't have the best hearing, but I can hear something bipedal walking through the laurel thicket above me. And you could hear that thump, thump, thump. Every time that footstep, you could hear it. And Newsom comes back and I asked him, I said, do you hear that walking? And he said, yeah. I said, you know, what do we do? And he's like, just don't say nothing. We don't want to scare, because our neighbor had his boy with him. He wasn't but like 8, 9 years old. Right. So we just kept quiet and all of that. And we also at that spot put out a 50-pound salt block. Well, we come back in a week or so to fill the feeder and all that. Well, the salt block's gone. Mm-hmm. And where it was at, it had to be physically picked up and carried off, because the way it was on the side of the hill, we put sticks under the underside so that it couldn't roll down the hill. So if it would have rolled down the hill, it would have had to knock the sticks over for it to roll. And if it did roll down the hill, there's a little old, it wasn't even really a branch, it's just a wet spot. There's no way that 50-pound salt block would have dissolved in a week and a half, 2 weeks time. So, you know, everything's starting to add up. There's something around here that is screaming, yelling, that is nothing that we've ever heard before. They're breaking limbs, twisting them off. There's no teeth, no claw marks. The tin's been pulled from the top of the tree. And this salt block has been literally picked up and carried off. So, you know, that's when you get into, well, we've eliminated everything else, and the only possibility is a Bigfoot, Sasquatch, whatever you want to call it. And I'd had a picture that I'd got off of my trail cam. By then, it was up to the SIM cards and all of that. So I had a picture, and just looking at it, you would think that it was just a deer's butt. And in my mind, I'm having a hard time with it. I'm a Christian, and I'm in my brain, Lord, am I putting too much into this? Am I letting my brain trick me into thinking that stuff's going on, that, you know what I mean? Because
yeah, 100%.
I've been all my life, and this don't make no sense. And the thought come to me, take that picture and lighten it up. And when I went in and lightened it up, there's one doing that classic peek around the tree. You can see its shoulder and its head and its other shoulder out from behind the tree. So I'm like, okay, that yes, sir.
You've got to tell about whenever you were getting the cameras that just had the dark pictures, and you started getting rid of them and about the live trap with the coon in it. You got to tell about that.
Okay. But once I lightened that picture up and everything else that was going on, you know, that's sort of, okay, this is definitely what it is. We've got, you can see it. I mean, you can't see detail, but you can definitely see the big head, no neck, and the big broad shoulders. So at that point, we're like, okay, we know what we're dealing with. But we didn't do nothing different. We just kept going and, doing our thing. And the part about our trail cameras, there's no telling how many hundreds of dollars, even maybe up into the thousands of dollars of trail cameras and stuff we threw away because they would be a blank picture there. It'd be taking pictures. There'd be deer, turkey, bear at the feeder, all that stuff. And then you'd get a blank picture or two, and then it would go back to taking pictures. And we thought our cameras wasn't no good, so we threw them all away. And
we threw them all away.
Yeah, we did. And go, that old adage, more expensive is better. Well, that wasn't the case. But I built a trap to catch coyotes in, and built it a live trap and I had the door weighted down, and I had it to where there was only one way you could get that door up. And what we would do is we would shoot the coyotes in the trap and then drag them out and get rid of them. And we kept going back to our trap, and the trap was tripped, but there wasn't nothing in it. So I told Newsom, I said, we need to figure out what is going on with this trap. We need to put a camera on it so we can see why it ain't tripping. So we put a trail camera on it about 20 feet from it on an old stump. And at 8:30 one night, a coon got in that trap. And through the series of pictures, you could see it moving around and all that stuff, because every time it would move, it would trip the camera and all of that. And I think the last picture that it's got is a little after midnight of that coon being in that trap. The very next picture is at 3:42 in the morning, and all you can see is the hair sticking out right in front of the camera. But in that same minute of 3:42, the coon's gone out of the trap. Well, there's no way that coon they could have got the one that was blocking the camera could have got the coon out of the trap because it's 20 feet away. So while that one was blocking the camera, another one had to go get the coon out of the trap. So, and you can't get the way I build it, you can't get the door up unless you reach in underside and push it up to get it past the spot, to lock it.
Yeah.
Whatever it was, which I know what it was because we got it on video, but it had to stick its hand in there and push it to get that up. And the line that he used to trip the door with was 90-pound braided fishing line.
Yeah.
And when we go in there, everything, the treadle that the coon used to step on to trip it, every bit of that was turned over backwards and dragged to the front of the cage.
Mm.
And that hair on that one's leg, that's when we realized that what they were doing, they were standing so close to it that usually you don't get nothing but a undeveloped picture because it's so close. But luckily, thank the Lord, because I'd still be buying trail cameras, but it didn't get it completely blocked. You can see the hair sticking out on the side of its leg.
So your theory is that one blocked the camera and the other one got the coon out of the trap.
Yeah, it had to, because there's no way in that 1 minute,
right.
In that, because on the timestamp on both of the pictures where the trap is empty and the hair on the side of that one's leg, it's in the same minute. So there's no way that it could have, in between those, taking those pictures, it could have run over there and opened the trap and got the coon out.
Yeah.
What? I mean, maybe you had already thought about it before that, but damn it, why do I keep freezing up? My internet's just as bad as Kumbo's. I'm gonna keep talking though. But so point being, something is smart enough to know where the camera is, comes in, blocks the camera while its buddy gets the coon out of the trap, and they still manage to get away without you taking a damn picture of the things.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's a smart creature. You already put all this together.
Yeah, and the crazy part is this is jumping.
Keep talking. I'll be right back.
And this is jumping ahead. Just the last time that I was up on one of our research areas on Standing Indian, we found one of my camera that had been missing since 2020. And Dwight found his camera. It had went missing in the fall. And both of them had the IRs busted out of them.
Wait, what now?
Yeah, that's strange. The cameras, there's no chew marks on them, nothing like that. But both the IRs on both of those cameras are busted out.
Well, how far did y'all find them from where they were when they come up missing?
The one, they was both within, now we looked, I mean, we spent, especially mine that had been missing for 4 years, we spent a lot of time looking. Every time we'd go in, we'd look more and more, and I found it within about 8 or 10 feet of the tree.
Right.
And Dwight's was laying face down. And why I didn't see that thing because I take my cameras out every year and my audio recorders, I usually leave maybe one camera in when they lock the gates. The Forest Service locks the gates from the first day of January to the first day of April. You can't get into them. So I take most of my stuff with me.
Yeah.
And I'd looked everywhere for Dwight's camera, and we couldn't find it. And then me and him goes back, and it's laying right there.
Hold on. Did you have an audio recorder running that was near one of the cameras? Did you hear anything as far as the cameras being ripped off? Also, whenever you're talking about your cameras being torn off and going missing, did you have them on there with like one of the mini bungee cords? Did you have them on there with the strap? Was the strap broken? Was it undone?
The one that I had missing for 4 years, it was actually held on with a magnet. It was one of the small ones. It's about 3-inch square.
Right.
And I had the magnet part of it. I had strapped to the tree with the strap that comes with it. Because I'm thinking that thing's so small, there ain't nothing going to see it. It'll be okay. But evidently not. But now Dwight's, when we went into it and found it, the bottom, we had it on with a strap too. And I found the strap because I know that's one way I know that I was where I was supposed to be, because before the gates closed, I went in to get everything and I couldn't find it. So I took the strap with me anyway. And then when the gates opened up in April, we went back up there and found it then. And it was, like I say, about five or so feet from the tree that I put it on. And the back of it had been busted out. The slits where the belt goes through.
Right. That's what I was asking.
Both of the bottom parts was broke off. It was the top part where it hangs like this, that it was all there except for probably about that much of the bottom part of the little strap slits that it goes through.
So it's like something grabbed it at the top and just pulled it forward.
Had to reach from the top and pull it down.
All right. I'm sorry. Keep talking. My internet sucks as bad as Kumbo's right now, and I keep freezing up. Y'all keep going.
And and also back on Newsom's property, when we was having all the encounters and stuff up there, we've had them tore off the tree and never find them.
How far away, like these properties where you're talking about where the cameras got gone to Newsom's property, are they really close right there?
No, they're probably a good 25, 30 miles, something like that. Yeah.
So two separate properties a long way apart then.
Yeah. And so far in the county, I have found at least 4 groups of them. And the reason I know that is because one spot I go, one day I get yelled at. I go across the county to another spot, I get whooped at. I go to another spot, I get rocks thrown. So there ain't no way that it's the same one, because I don't even know where I'm going half the time when I get up of the morning. It's just what, you know what I mean? So there's no way that it can be just one family of them going from spot to spot, because would they know where I'm going?
Well, see, like what you're describing, I mean, you just you're nearly on the same page of music. Everything that's happened to me since 2000. I mean, I've been dealing with these things for 24 years. The thing about with me, it was 2009 before I ever laid eyes on one, just actually saw one. I done had hundreds of encounters, but I couldn't see one.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've had the rocks thrown, sticks thrown, seen breaks, seen all kind of stuff, heard every noise that you can attribute to one, but I could not lay eyes on one till January the 29th of 2009, when I had one step out of the wood line and then jump up in the road and run across a 2-lane road in front of me. So, and
he had to follow him, not necessarily home. Slow down, y'all. Slow down. Tim's got a lot of stuff. That's why this show needs to.
Back on my buddy Newsom's property, I'll tell about the time that me and my dad was up there hunting. We was up there bow hunting, and we had up where I hunted at. I didn't have a feeder. I just put deer cane out on the ground, and my dad, he would hunt down near the feeder. So we go up there one evening, and we had an old porta-john. You know how rednecks are. Somebody gave us an old porta-john, so we cut it out and made a
deer say it right,
and painted it camouflage and set it in the woods, you know. And but my dad had walked past it and sat at the edge of a little laurel thicket where he could hide and watch the feeder. And this was in 2016, because it was year that we had all the wildfires. And no, I'm sorry, I about told you a lie. It was in 2015. It was year before. But we're up there, and I go on up to my place, and I'm sitting there, and it gets down that time of evening, you know, when it good hunting and all of that stuff. And I hear something coming, and I can tell it's circling around me. So I thought, okay, here comes some deer. So I get my crossbow ready and all that stuff, and nothing never shows up. And so I'm sitting there waiting, and here about 50 yards out from me, a rock lands. And by that time, you know, I done know they're not going to bother me, nothing like that. So I thought, I'm just going to sit here and see how close of a rock they'll throw. So I kept sitting there, and in a few minutes, here come another rock about 40 yards out. And this was in November, so all the acorns are off the trees and all that stuff. So I know it's not acorns are falling. And I'm sitting there, and then it's about 30 yards. A few minutes later, it's about 20 yards. And then the next one hits about a foot from my foot. And I thought, okay, it's time for me to go. And so I called Dad up, and I told him, I said, them Bigfoots are up here throwing rocks, so it's time for me to ease out. And he had never heard one whistle. And he said, that was the strangest thing down here. Said, down above the porta-john blind in the laurel thickets, something would whistle. And then in the laurel thicket straight up above me, between me and you, it would whistle twice. And then the one back lower whistle once, and the one above me whistled twice. And he said they'd done that for probably 15 or 20 minutes. And he said then they stopped. And I got to thinking about where I was, and all of that would have worked about, it leaving him and circling around to coming in and watching what I was doing. And the place that it was at when it was throwing the rocks is the same place that they was at whenever I heard them speak that time.
We got to talk about whenever you heard them speak,
Okay.
but now you're talking about North Carolina, which I grew up in North Carolina, and I'm not that far above it where it is right now. And I keep telling everybody that they behave differently here. There are parts of, like, for example, LBL, Land Between the Legs.
Uh-huh.
If you go and you do the 3-syllable call, if you do it at the right time of year and you do it the right way, you're going to get a reply. And normally it's the yell back. It's the scream back that sounds like a hat.
Yeah.
If I do that here, I don't get anything.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if I do a whoop here, a lot of times I'll get a knock or a whistle.
Yeah.
I'm assuming that what you're talking about is like in your area, they're doing these very subtle whistles. Have you ever heard like the light knocks where it's just a very light knock? It's like they're trying not to be loud.
No, I've not. But the one that I had following me one time turkey hunting, the way it whooped, it was like, come on, let's go. That morning I was down on the Georgia line in a place called Scaly Mountain. And I'm in there turkey hunting, and it's that time of morning when I can start walking without a flashlight, but it's not daylight. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's when you can sneak through the woods without a light. And I heard a turkey gobble, so I went ahead and put my face mask on and my gloves on. So I'm totally camouflaged out. I ease up on this old skid road, and I'm standing there waiting on that turkey to gobble again, so I know where to set up on it at. And I'm standing there, and I do just a real soft call, trying to get it to gobble. And up above me, I hear whoop. And I thought, no, because I'd never seen it, had any idea that they was even in that place. And I thought, no, I'm just hearing things. And so I ease out the road a little bit, just trying to get that turkey to call. And every time I would stop, it was whoop. And it followed me about 150 yards out the road and then back. And then it started getting daylight enough, I think, to where it could see that I wasn't one of them. I'm a pretty good sized feller. I'm a little over 6 feet tall, 250 pounds. So it might have thought I was a baby or something, but it was honestly sounding like it was that call. It was so soft and everything, like, come on, it's getting daylight. It's time to go. We got to go. And around that area, one thing the reason that I think they're there is they have a lot of cabbage and tomato fields. So it could easily walk down to them cabbage and tomato fields in 5 minutes, go down there and get whatever it wants and be gone back up into the woods in no time.
The very soft woo, woo, not like a full whoop, but just a woo.
Uh-huh.
I've heard that, and I've had suspicions. Do you ever hear owl calls down there? That is not it's not an owl. You can tell because it's ooh, ooh, ooh.
Not owls, but I have heard crow and coyotes.
Really?
Yeah. The my main research area up on Standing Indian. That's actually how I found out about it. I was up there deer hunting. It was after our gun season when bow season opens up, so it was mid to late December. And I'm up there, and all of a sudden the fog starts setting in, and the clouds set down, and all that stuff, and I can't see but about 30 yards in front of me. And I've hunted up there, and I've never heard a crow. I've heard ravens, but I never heard a crow. And I'm sitting there, just hoping a deer come through, and all of a sudden I hear a crow that I know is not a crow, and it only does it one time. And I can tell that it's halfway between where I'm at and the top of the ridge. So I got Dwight to go with me. And I said, let's go up there and check this place out because I think they're up there. And we get up there and get to checking everything out. And that ridge where it was at, we found the side of it is a laurel thicket, and they had walked out that laurel thicket and busted them over and made like a hedgerow for them to hide behind to where they could sit up there and watch anybody and everybody coming into that area.
Right. Are you in those areas? Are you finding what a lot of people talk about as far as stick structure? Are you finding X's, TPs, bows, anything like that?
A lot of X's and bows, some stick structures, but none of the TP type stuff. I have found where looks like they've made blinds.
Yeah.
To where they could either ambush. One of the places that I hunt, they had brought in brush and put it across the deer trails and funneled them right by a big old hemlock tree where they had made a blind so that they had to come by.
There
that.
You go.
So
there you go.
I have found that, and me and Dwight found close to the Appalachian Trail where they had built a spot near one of the hiker shelters. It was probably 60, 80 yards above it, but they could sit up there and be hid and watch everything going on down at the shelter.
Man, golly, Tim, everything that you're saying I can so identify with, but if you go to different parts of the country, it changes.
Yeah.
But hey, let me ask you this. Man, I just completely lost my train of thought. It was something that you were saying about the deer trail and everything. Oh, didn't I hear you talk about you found hair samples in a tree?
Yeah. And we just sent just a while back, we sent the first samples we had, we got Robin Moonchatter to test them.
Yeah.
And from what Dr. Melgrim, Jeff Melgrim talks about their hair without the solid color from one end to the other.
Right.
It come back matching everything that it needed to be Bigfoot hair. The ones that we sent off, it's been a little over a month ago to North Carolina State University. They have got them, and I've not heard.
We'll get to that.
They have those hairs now doing DNA and all of that stuff on those.
Everybody, hold on. This show, look, I was trying to go in chronological order, but Tim, have you ever had deer, or you or anybody that you hunted with, have you ever had deer snatch, go missing? Like you shot them, you knew they were down, and then you go to get them and they're not there?
I have on one of the areas that I think they travel through, going to some cornfields and that kind of stuff. I'd shot one with my crossbow, and I was tracking it down. And I mean, I made a good shot right behind the shoulder. It wasn't going to go far. And
right.
I'm feeling the blood, and I get down there, and the blood stops. The deer's gone, but the arrow's laying there. And the arrow, the only place that there's blood on the arrow is in between the veins,
right,
and the broadhead. there's the whole shaft of it. There's no blood whatsoever.
Yeah.
And it's just laying there. I mean, just like the deer pulled it out, throwed it down, but there was no blood after that. It just like this is where it stopped at, and now it's completely gone.
It was that bubbly fresh blood, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, it was hit good. I mean, there was not a doubt that I was going to
Mr.
get
Allen?
it. At least I thought I was going to get it anyway.
Have you ever found a bone field or anything where there's multiple bones stacked up there? Just curious.
No, but I have found like hog skulls and stuff that's places where you normally wouldn't hunt. You know what I mean? They just seemed out of place.
Kind of.
Like me and my dad was going into a place where we go dig grounds, and we found these trees that have been over, done the classic tree break and all of that stuff. And we get up there and there's a hog skull, but there's no other bones with it. It's just the skull. There's no,
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah.
It just really didn't belong there because there was nothing. No matter where we looked at, we couldn't find no other bones with it at all.
Yes, it is. Hey, okay. Well, people are asking if you ever had a Class A sighting. So you've had a few sightings.
Mm-hmm.
Can you start from the very first one and like kind of go over those? Because everybody's asking questions before he gets to it. But anyway, so
that's okay. The first one that I ever actually saw, I was bow hunting, and there's a place here called Rainbow Springs. I was walking up in there, and all of a sudden, something comes out in front of me, and it drops down to all fours and takes off running. And I mean, it cleared it out of sight within just mere seconds.
Tim, slow down and give details. Give details. Everybody wants no detail. You can't say that one of the damn things just walked out, dropped down to all fours, and went running. Tell the whole story.
That's actually about how fast it happened. I mean, I'm just easing up to get up on side of the ridge, to hunt. And I just happened to hear something, and it's steep, of course. So I'm looking more in front of me, and something catches my vision a little bit over to the right of me. And I see it drop down, and it takes across running out through the woods in front of me. But the way it run, I knew it wasn't a bear or nothing like that because its hind end was lower than its front end. Like its front arms was longer.
Right.
And
definitely not a bear.
No. And in that same area, I was in there turkey hunting, and didn't hear nothing that morning. So I got out my woodpecker call. I can do woodpeckers because a lot of times that'll get the turkeys to gobble. And I hit that, and a coyote starts up, but then a Bigfoot starts hollering. And it's about 120 yards in front of me. And so that's all in the same area. I know it happened so fast that I didn't get a good look at face or nothing like that because it was gone. But I know what it had to have been because there's no other animal built like that other than a Bigfoot. That was the very first one. The second one, me and Dwight was going into one of our research areas, and we've actually got it on video. It's on Dwight's YouTube channel, and we're easing around the road, and we smell one, and we're standing there talking about smelling it, and this is when we realized that these things are like skunks. They can smell when they want to, and if they don't want to, they don't smell. Because we're standing there in the same spot, the wind ain't changing. And once we stop, we don't smell it. It just tapers off and is gone. And we're standing there talking about smelling it, and I see something moving in the clear cut. And I told Dwight, I said, there's something moving in the clear cut. And we keep standing there talking. And like I say, it's all on his video. And a few minutes, I say, there's something moving in that clear cut. And Dwight, being that guy, carries more cameras than NBC, but he takes it and he zooms in and he does a video like this. And then, we just go on, but we hear it following us. It followed us a mile and a half in there and back out. And when Dwight got home, he sent me a still picture out of the video, and it's one that we use like when we do our booth at festivals and conferences. You can see it's got a big green leaf across its forehead, but you can see the pointed head above it. You can see the two eyes, the big wide nose you can actually see sticking out. So it's a pretty good picture, but that was the second one that I ever saw.
And that's on Dwight's channel?
Yes, sir.
Is that Dirty Squatching?
No, I think it's just Dwight Campbell on YouTube.
It might be. We'll have to find it and put in the link so people can go back and check that out.
And then the third one, me and Dwight was over in Cage Cove. And we're easing around through there, and we get up to a spot to pull off, which we pull off. And Dwight said, there was one just went behind that root ball. There's about 500-600 yards from us, there's a tree pushed up. And he seen it step in behind that root ball. And it's down on the creek bank. So I take my thermal binoculars. I've got my binoculars will detect heat signatures out to 1,800 yards. So I zoom in on it, and I can see the arm moving. And on the video, it's hard to see because, we're talking about a root ball of a full-size tree. But you can see its elbow moving and its arm coming out every once in a while and stuff like that. That was the third one that I saw. The fourth one that I saw was on the first day of December in 2021. Up on Standing Indian at my research area. I'd went in and traded out our audio recorders. They'll record 24 hours a day for 2 weeks. And then we have to go in and change the SIM card out in them. So I was going in to change that out, and it was deer season, of course. So I had my gun with me, and I thought, well, I'm going to hunt while I'm up here. So the place that I go to at that time was a pretty fresh clear cut where you could see through it and all of that. So I thought, well, I'm going to sit down and hunt the bottom of this clear cut because I could see where deer had been horning trees and all of that stuff. So I sat down and been sitting there a little over an hour. I was sitting there reading my Bible and done that and put my phone up. And I got that feeling I was being watched. And I turned around and looked behind me, and there's one standing, I can see from its right shoulder over of it standing there watching me. So I get my phone out, and I just got an iPhone from those flip phones, and I'm trying to get it to zoom and all that stuff, and I know it ain't going to last long. So I throw my phone down, and I grab my gun up. Well, when I started to turn around, it seen me with my gun, and it stepped back, and all I could see was its left shoulder. And I'm hoping that it'll peek out, and I'm looking through my scope. It was probably maybe 100 yards from me. Right. And so I'm hoping I can see its face. I'm hoping but it would not move. The whole time I had my gun in my hands, it would not move. So I thought, well, I don't want it to think that I'm going to harm it. So I set my gun down, and it wouldn't move. And it went from standing up, it went down to all fours, and I'm watching it out the corner of my eye. And it crawls on its belly from one clump of trees over to another clump of trees. And from that clump of trees, it goes from there back across the ridge. I reckon where it come from. More than likely, I would say was probably watching me the whole time I was in there changing my audio recorder and trip jamming stuff out.
What drew your attention over? First of all, was it the typical everything got quiet? Did you see something move? What drew your attention over to it at 100 yards away?
That feeling you get that you're being watched.
Okay.
Now, I did have a rock throwed, but I'm like, well, maybe that's just a woodpecker. This is a new clear cut. But it was just that one when it hit a tree, hit the logs when it landed. And so I thought, well, maybe I'm just putting too much into it again.
Right.
And so I just kept sitting there reading my Bible on my phone. And then when I put my phone up, that like something's watching me. And I just happened to turn around and it was up on the ridge behind me, watching me.
I find it interesting that you were reading the Bible whenever those happen, which branches off into a different thing. And look, y'all, there ain't no way we can go through every little detail of what all this man has experienced. He's had a lot of stuff happen. It'd be like trying to narrow down Greg in a 1 hour show. You just, you ain't going to get to all of it. Let me ask you this.
Okay.
With as much as you've gone through, give us your overall opinion of what you think these things are.
My honest opinion is I just think they're a flesh and blood animal like a mountain gorilla, something like that. The reason I say that is, and anytime I speak at a conference or a festival or whatever, I tell people, if I ever have an experience that makes me think otherwise, I'll be the first to admit it. I mean, I ain't so big and high and mighty that I can't admit I'm wrong.
Right.
But everything that I have seen so far, they come in, they carry gut paws off when we kill deer and hogs and that kind of stuff. The sounds that they make, like when I heard them speak and when we got bluff charged, that kind of stuff, the sound was almost identical to what a silverback gorilla does when it does a bluff charge, if you want to look that up on YouTube.
Have you ever heard them where it sounded like they were thumping their chest, like beating their chest at you?
I've not, but I don't know. Like I say, with my hearing, I don't know how many times I've maybe heard that and thought it was like a woodpecker, because I have heard a lot that real quick, that sounds like it's on a holler log.
Yeah. Or
in a holler tree. But I've always associated it with a woodpecker because that's the only, I had never really thought about them doing the chest thump, but I don't see why they wouldn't.
Well, when the times that I've heard them do that was when they were really upset and growling and huffing and throwing a fit and breaking limbs and like they would get upset and it's like they'll pace back and forth. They won't just stand still and throw a fit. It's like they're just like circling or going back and forth in the thicket, and then they would just start. You just hear blum 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 blum, and then they just keep huffing and grunting and growling. And
now that might have been the one when that we got in between the mama and the baby. That might have been what it was, but with my hearing, it sounded like it's going like that. But it could have been, chest thumping.
Yeah.
And me and Dwight and Robin Moonshadow was there that day. So we all three, it got between us and the vehicles and starts up all that stuff. And we're like, okay, we'll just stand here and you just do your thing. And we didn't even know there was a small one around until we went off down in there where when we first started and she first started making all the noise, she was up on the ridge. On the other side of the ridge is a clear cut. On the side that we is on is a pine thicket with some hardwoods in it with acorns and stuff. So a perfect place for deer. And she come off of that and stayed out of sight enough and got in between us and the vehicles and started, just pitching a fit. And once she leaves, I showed them a pine tree that me and my dad had found. You can see where the hand wrapped around it. You can see where the thumb pulled bark and stuff off here and 4 fingers pulled it off of this side. So there's no doubt, what it was because the way the thumb wrapped around.
Yeah.
So that was what I was wanting to show them when we started around that road in between them. Then she got mad and come off. And once she went on, we, of course, went on and done our stuff. And that's one thing that we've learned when they're pitching a fit and stuff like that, just ignore them.
Right.
We just stand still, ignore them, let them do their thing. And so far, knock on wood, they leave us alone and just go on. But we got off down in there and we found a nest and we found some little tracks about 5 or 6 inches long, just small tracks. So we figured that while she was up there hunting, she had the baby down there where she could watch it. And then we started to go in between them. And she come off the mountain and come down and got the baby and moved on.
The ones you were talking about that you've seen, what colors have you seen as far as all of them the same color, different colors, or what?
The ones that I've seen have been like a charcoal grayish black color. My dad seen one and he said it was more of the brownish color. And that sighting, I was with him, we was deer hunting, and he thought it was somebody walked in front of him. It was opening day of deer season, and it was the time of morning like I was talking about when I was turkey hunting, when you can see enough.
Yeah.
He said it come out of the creek bottom and started walking out in front of him, and he thought, well, what's this idiot doing? Number one, it ain't got a flashlight. He ain't got a gun. And he ain't got no orange on in that opening day of deer season.
Yeah.
And then once we got to talking, I said, well, what was he wearing? Well, it was sort of a reddish brown top and bottom. And that's when we started putting it together. And what I think was the real clincher was Daddy whistled at it, because he wanted them to know that, I'm in here hunting and you need to get a light on or something. And he said, as soon as it whistled, said it looked over its shoulder at him and stared at him for about 10, 15 seconds. And then it just walked on. But it was a reddish brown color.
Being where you are, and you guys going out and looking for these things and getting results, what would you tell somebody that wanted to get into this and wanted to go out and like actually get into an area where these things are? What are you looking for as far as the terrain, the area? What are you looking for that indicates to you, hey, they might be in here? Because you've got a pretty good batting average. So
I think the one reason that I do so good is because I'm hunting. They have to have a food source. So if there's plenty of deer, hogs, coons, that kind of stuff, that's one thing that they're going to have is food. And I've been lucky that a lot of my hunting spots just happen to turn out to be where they're at. But the one thing that I guess more than anything is the tree breaks. And you got to watch. I know we don't get enough snow to do that much tree breaking.
right.
But if you look at them and you see these real small splinters, it's like something that's grabbed it here and snapped it. If it's weather, they'll splinter long because something ain't holding it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The grain in that tree runs long ways. And if it gets in the grain, it'll split it just like splitting locust poles. You get a wedge, hit it on one end of it, even though it may be 6 foot long. it'll bust down that thing long ways. Well,
Right.
these are snapped off and they're real small. And I've asked Coonbo about this, and I don't know if he's had the chance to check into it or not. It seems like, and you guys might know, but it seems to me like they're always at that one angle, almost a 45-degree angle that is almost always the same, even if the tree is. I've got a picture of one of Newsom standing under a maple tree that is about that big around that they snapped off about 6.5 feet high. And it's still at that same, the same degrees and everything. But that's the one thing that shows up the most is the tree breaks.
Yeah.
And the structures. One thing that is interesting to me, and I don't know why they do it and probably never will know, but when you find these sticks that are stuck up for no reason,
you talking about stuck in the ground?
they're stuck straight in the ground.
Right.
When a limb falls out of a tree, it's going to fall heavy in first. That weight's going to shift and it's going to fall that way. Well, I find them a lot with the small end stuck into the ground. And I've even, some spots I've took them out and thrown them down and come back, and that same stick will be stuck up in the ground again.
Oh, you got to talk about the time that you went in. I forget who it was. It was you and somebody else going in, and as you went in, you moved the branches out of the way, and then you come back out.
Yeah, I was going up on one of my hunting squatching spots.
Keep talking about.
When I first started going in there, I didn't see no Bigfoot, no sign of them. And I had 23 wild hogs on my camera, on my trail cam. Yeah. And in a year's time, it went from 23. When I started finding the Bigfoot sign, in a year's time, it went from 23 down to 3. And I was going in to change my trail cam and stuff out, and I found a limb that is broke off. It's about 7.5 feet high. So I reached up, I took my phone out, documented it. I said, this wasn't here the last time I was here. And I broke it off and throwed it down. And that's one thing that I do. I do it for 2 reasons. Everything that I see that they do, I try to clear out. And that way, when I go back, I know if something's new or not.
Yeah.
And also with me undoing what they've done, it seems to make them interact with me more because they're, all right, he cleared that out. Let's do this. But I reached up and broke that off. And I'm going on up through there, and I go into a laurel thicket that I've got a trail cut through. And there's a limb stuck in sideways, chest high. And in that laurel thicket, I know there's no way that thing fell down through all the laurels and then just happened to land in 2 V's chest high for me to walk into. So I document it, take it out. I come out the other side, and a rock comes over my head and lands out in front of me. I'm sitting there resting because this place, it takes about 1.5 hours to walk into. And I get my phone back out. I said, well, there's a rock just landed right there. And from best I can tell, it comes from behind me. And I hold my phone up and all that stuff. And then I keep walking. I get up and get into where my camera is, and I change it out, and I come back down. Well, the spot where I broke the first limb off, there's 2 fresh poplar limbs laying there across the trail. Right. And I know good and well he wasn't there because, number one, I would have picked them up and cleared them out of my trail. Number 2, they're white. The bark's just been peeled. And you know how it is when you break a limb, it's white and shiny and all that stuff. So I get them, I document them, and I take them and throw them out of the trail. And I go back down, and I have to go through a narrow place and through some more laurels, and I hear one growl at me. And in my mind, I'm thinking, you idiot, I ain't got time to fool with you. I'm just going to ignore you and go on. And I come out the other side, and it growls again. And again, I know not to run or panic or nothing like that. I just act like I don't hear it. And I get ready to step across a little old branch that I had to cross, and there's a stick stuck in that would have hit me across the bridge of the nose. And it wasn't there when I come in because I'd had to have moved it. So I take my phone out, document it, throw it down, and I get back down into the main old logging road, and there's a locust that's across it about that big around that I have to go under. And I get down there, and there's a maple about the size of a softball been broke over top of it while I was up in there.
Yeah.
So they had done all of that. What time the hour and a half or so that it took me to walk in there and back out, they had done all of that while I was actually in there.
Wow.
And the one part that I talk about hearing them talk, that was up on my buddy's Newsom's property. And up to this point, I was one of them, and I told Newsom, I said, we will kill one of these things, and that'll put the end to the discussion. There won't be no denying it. Of course, since then, I've learned that, number one, if you shoot one, there's probably going to be 2 or 3 that tear you apart before you get out of there.
Yes,
and
sir.
Number 2, how you going to get 800-pound animal out of the woods? But I told Newsom that we'll kill one. I said, and then that'll put the end of the debate. And I'd killed an 8-point up there at my hunting spot, and they'd carried the gut pile off and all of that stuff like they do. And when I carry it off, I don't mean like it, that it's been drugged. It's been actually picked up, and every leaf that's got blood on it, hair on it, it's like that deer gut pile was never there. I mean, you won't find nothing.
It's like a forensic team came in and took it off.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if NCIS had to track them, they wouldn't get no clues because they don't leave nothing behind. But I'm sitting up there. It's on the week before I'd killed 8-point. It's on the Tuesday evening, and about that time of evening when deer start moving and all that stuff, I hear what I thought was people to start with. And I'm sitting there listening. I thought, well, how did they get in here? And number 2, what kind of language is that? I didn't understand. So I'm texting Newsom. He's about 300-400 yards from me. I said, somebody's in here, and I can hear what they're saying, but what they're saying don't make sense. I don't understand the language or nothing like that. And he said, well, just sit still because they'll have to turn their flashlights on to leave. And I said, okay. So I sat there, and I mean, it gets way after dark. And finally Newsom comes to me, and the once it got good and dark and everything, and we turned our lights on, the talking quit. When they seen him a coming, the talking quit. And then again, Thursday of the same week, it happened the very exact same thing, about the same time of evening, 2 of them talking back and forth. And that's when I realized, what it was. And to me, I've got people in my family that are Cherokee, full-blooded. And it sounded like a lot of Native American language with monkey gibberish thrown in on it. And clicks and how they make them sound. And that when they first started talking, I can still hear it just as plain as if it had to been 10 minutes ago. But it's just one of them things that I guess it sticks with you.
How far away were they from you? Could you tell when they were talking?
I'd say they couldn't have been no more than 50 or 60 yards because I wouldn't have heard them. Because they're not being overly loud. They're just normal talking. It's not like they're nothing like that. But
if you would go back and listen to Greg, which Greg's done several shows, but talking about house, just real briefly, tell him about whenever the ones were talking near you, because I doubt he's heard your thing with that.
Yeah. The two that I heard, the first one walked up and I heard it pull a log off the ground and like toss it. And I could hear it like roll down the hill and hit a tree. Mm-hmm. And then I could hear it raking. It was like it was raking the soft dirt that was where that log was. And you could hear the dirt splattering out on the leaves. Yeah. And then the other one came from the same direction that one came from. And they were just over a little bit of like where the ridge tapered off. I'm up here with a crossbow, and these things are within 100 feet. I just can't see them because they're just over the crown of the hill.
Yeah.
The other one walked up right to where I'm hearing this noise. This one comes and goes, and they're both right there.
Yeah.
And they started talking. That's all I can say is they started talking back and forth. But what I heard, it was like they were excited, or like I was hearing people that were excited. And I told people it was like kind of like not like anger, but it was like, well, yeah, kind of like mad Chinese people or Russian, or
yeah.
It was a language that I mean, I'm hearing it, and I'm hearing two separate voices, mm-hmm. One's deeper than the other, but it was really quick because like as soon as one voice would stop, the other one would just like right back at it. It's like this one and this one, but it had a lot of like Native American like feel or tone to it.
Yeah.
But, and they would get like it would get stuck on one syllable, and it would just like it was stuttering on that syllable. But it was like one of them would go, oi, yeah, yo, yeah. And then the other one would go just right back, go, yeah. And then it was just back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. But it was like it was just like they were like we got to do something, it's like they were, fussing at each other kind of.
Yeah.
And now what I heard, which like I said, I was about 100 feet.
Yeah.
And there was no problem hearing it at all. I mean, it was plenty loud. Like, I didn't have any problem hearing it, but it was just, I was just like, oh my God, these, and I knew it's like, they're actually talking back and forth and back and forth and back.
Yeah. And that's exactly when you made them sounds, that's exactly what, like I heard. And like I said, they wasn't overly loud like they were screaming, because I've heard them scream, Oh, yeah. But they were loud enough to where I can hear them.
Yep.
And so, I know they had to be pretty close. And it was, these two were sitting there talking, and you're exactly right. One wouldn't be shut up for a second or maybe two at that, and the other one would start. Mm-hmm. And as soon as that one would start, this one would start. Mm-hmm. And somebody asked me about the Sierra sound. I said, yeah, it sounds a lot like that, but not as aggressive. Yeah. On that one, like he's really, aggravated at something. But I got in there, messed up their deer drive one time. And now that one, if they're cussing, they let me have it. I mean, I'm honest to goodness, as soon as they started hollering and screaming the way it was, I thought they're cussing me out. And I'd gone into the same spot where me and Dwight had seen the one that he videoed. And I would go in that morning bow hunting, and I get ready I set my crossbow down, and I get ready to take my backpack off, because I sit on the ground when I hunt. I don't hunt out of a stand. Yeah. And so I set my crossbow down, and I get ready to take my backpack off. Well, here comes a doe flying down the ridge. And she gets within about, I'd say within 10, 20 yards of me, and sees me. And I mean, her eyes just bugged out, and that tongue run out of slapping her ears. You could tell that she was spooked. And she run back up the hill. Then she run back down to me. Then she run back up the hill. Then she run back down to me. And she done that probably 6 or 8 times. And finally, it was just like she gave up, and she ran about halfway between where she would turn around at me and up there, and she just stopped like, what do I do? And I thought, well, what's this crazy thing of doing, So by then I'd got my bow up hoping to get a shot at her, but she wasn't. When she did stop, she was far enough off I couldn't shoot at her with my crossbow. But before then, she would run down to me and wouldn't stop, and she'd turn around and run back up. And about 45 minutes to an hour after she done that, and it got good in daylight, and it was that same time of morning, like I've been saying the other times, that when you can see, but you can't see. And about an hour 45 minutes after that, there was two of them going up to the top of the clear cut in front of me, and you could hear them. And I mean, it sounded like they was calling me everything but a white boy.
Yeah.
And the only thing that I could figure out is that the one that would have been down there where I was at had to go and hide because I come in on them. And then when I come in, they couldn't do the deer drive because I was there, and the one had to go, and then I spooked the deer off and they didn't get it. But that's honestly, if I don't know if they got a cussing language or not, but if they do, they're sure letting me have it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we got to go back and cover some of the stuff because we've been just rolling through everything that you've been talking about, which he's like, I think it was Mark Green that said Tim is kind of like the Kumbo of North Carolina. He's got a lot of stuff. And you need to take time and listen to everything he has to say. But I got to cover some basic things for everybody that's going to watch this show or is watching it now. Number one, you've seen them a few times. In your overall, just general thing from every time that you've seen them, even though a couple of the sightings weren't like really clear and everything, describe one to us as best you can physically.
The one that I got the best look at was on December the 1st in 21. And I seen it. It was, I would say, was between 7.5, 8 foot tall, but it was broad. I mean, it was wide. It was probably over 3 foot wide across the shoulders, and just black hair, charcoal grayish looking hair, long arms. The arms, because when I first seen it, it was just watching me, and the left arm hung down past its waist. And it just stood there watching me. I couldn't. That's the reason I tried to get my phone out and then my gun up, because I wanted to get details of the face. I wanted to see what its eyes look like, what its teeth look like, but I didn't get that. But I just got the big broad chest, the big broad shoulders, no neck, short conical head.
Whenever you say no neck. Did the shoulders like run into the right? Okay.
Yeah, it's like it's sort of like a big stocky weightlifter. You remember the wrestler Goldberg? He didn't have no neck; it was all just muscle, and it's sort of like his head set on his shoulders.
Whenever you say a conical head, so it was. It was noticeably, you could see like an apex up top.
It was, sort of not like that, but you could tell that it come up more on top, not flat like our heads are. It was more rounded, higher.
And do you think it was hair, or do you think it was the top of its head?
I don't know. I could just tell that, that's the way that it was shaped. It was, it's sort of like the one in the picture that me and Dwight got. You can see that it comes up more of a lot more than what our head to do. So I just figured that it was, just the way it was shaped.
Even though it was wide, do
Mhm.
you think it was lanky or do you think it was thick?
No, it was muscular. I mean, you're talking arms that look like, its arms is like my legs.
Okay. All right.
And the thing about it is, it carried the mass wasn't just in the biceps; it was all the way down. The whole arm is massive.
Whenever you say it had, like, how long did the arms go? Did the arms go almost to the knee? Were they in between the waist and the knee?
They went closer to the knee more than they did the waist.
Okay. Whenever you talked about the one that was standing up and it got down on all fours and crawled,
Uh-huh.
did it move like a human would? Did it move different? How did it move?
It done like an army crawl with its like that.
Really?
Yeah. It
So
wasn't like
on its elbows?
Yeah, it was like it's laying on its belly doing an army crawl where you use your elbows.
Okay. So not like what a lot of people talk about with a spider crawl where they got the arms reach way out. It just
no, this was like it was army crawling.
Okay. Did you see the eyes on any of them?
No, I've not. The closest one was the one that seen the very first one I ever saw, but it dropped down and took off so fast I didn't have a chance to.
Whenever you say took off so fast, how fast is so fast?
It covered probably 150 yards in just a few seconds.
Really?
Yeah.
Damn, that's fast.
Yeah. I mean, it caught my attention. I turn around, it drops down, and it takes off. And for some reason, I guess I'm looking to see if there's more of them. But I look back, and then I look, and I don't see it no more. It's completely gone.
That's fast.
Yeah.
I bet that gave you the willies, huh?
Well, it's like, it's when I'm just learning about them. I'm like, well, that's what that, you start scratching your head.
Made you think you didn't see what you saw?
Yeah, especially when it got gone so fast. But I know good and well what I seen. I'm like, I ain't having a heart attack. I ain't passing out. I don't drink. I ain't on drugs. So,
well, I've told people, for me, when I've seen them, the way they move, it was like watching a video mashed on fast forward.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Well, I got to ask you. So I got to cover all these bases because you've had enough. I mean, don't think I'm just trying to skip over all the relevant stuff. The problem is I got to get you and some other people on here and just have like a long 4-hour show where we go over everything.
Yeah.
But the hair, how long do you think the hair was?
I'd say probably 3 or 4 inches long, about like that. And it seemed like when it gets down close to the hands, it's shorter. Not like the hair just hangs over like our hair. It runs down to about right in here. But the best I could tell, it didn't hang down over its fingers and all of that stuff. And the one picture that I've got is of one's midsection, and you're talking hairs probably 4 to 5 inches long. But the best that I could tell, the one that I seen wasn't that, shaggy.
Have you ever seen other side of, what is that noise?
I think that's my computer.
Oh, okay. Of all the ones that you've seen, have you ever seen one turned in such a way where it practically disappeared? I'm trying to talk about like the quality of the hair and the way that they might reflect light and everything and make them. You see where I'm going?
Sort of like when people say they can cloak.
Yeah.
Well, I can tell you this on the hair samples that we got, that one hair it'll have like a brown or a black, reddish color, and then it'll go translucent, and then there'll be a little bit of color, and then it'll be translucent, and they may be 2 or 3 different colors in that one hair. And the reason I think that people think they're cloaking is that hair, that translucent part of it, is absorbing what's around them. You know, like a fishing line. A fishing line, you throw it in the water, it absorbs the colors around it. And I think that's what that translucent part is doing, is that it's just reflecting the colors around it to where it makes it blend in even more.
Well, personally, I think you're right on that. But at the same time, though, you have to admit, there's a lot of strange stuff. If you go in the woods and you go looking for these things, there's strange stuff that happens while you're out there. Have you ever had the battery drain or anything like that, or just the infrasound where you get sick or feel uncomfortable or anything?
Yeah, I've had, me and my dad was going on, and wasn't even one of my research areas. We was going in the woods hunting, and I took my phone off the charger in the truck, so I know that it was 100%.
Right.
We get up, and my dad can't go that far. He's getting up in years, but he stopped where he wants to go, and I'm just going to walk the road and look around, that kind of stuff. And I get up there, and here's a tore up tent in the middle of the road. I mean, it's tore all to pieces. There's clothes there. There's pots, pans. I don't know what happened. I ain't going to say that, that they got attacked or run off or whatever, because I don't know. All I know is there's a tent in the middle of the road, and it's ransacked and all of that stuff. And I go on past it, and I get up at the end of the road, and I get my phone out, and because I found some tree breaks, and I'm documenting them, and I said, well, I'm going to go back down and check that tent out some more. And I said, let's go back down here. And I happened to look down at my phone, and my phone was down to like 3%, something like that. And I couldn't film anymore because I had to call my dad to tell him that, where I was at and ready to go and that kind of stuff.
Right.
And so
shut up, Haywood.
Sorry, I have had that happen. And up in on Standing Indian, I took one of my buddies, and him and his wife and my son. This is the crazy. We're going up through there up the road, and it's about, you have to drive back in the woods about 8 miles before you get to where we park at and we start walking. And I'm telling my son about me and my dad finding a log across the road up there, and everybody was going around it. And I thought, well, I'm just going to move it. So I get out and move it, and I get to looking, trying to find out where it come from, and I can't find the stump anywhere where it come from. And I was just telling him how weird that was, just for a tree to be laying out in the middle of the road, and you can't figure out where it come from. So we go on up, and I show my buddy my area and everything. It starts raining, so we go back and get in our vehicles, and we go around the road to where Daddy and his buddy had seen those tracks in the 70s. And here comes what I call the second chance kids, the kids that get in trouble, but they take them out and try to teach them nature and all that stuff. Well, they're walking up into the woods, and there's a woman walking behind them. And I told her, I said, ma'am, you might want to be careful. There's some dangerous things out here. And we get to talking. She said, yeah. Said, we had a bear growl at us coming around the road a while ago. And first of all, I'm thinking, well, number one, would 10, 15 kids, that bear ain't going to stand there. That bear's going to be gone.
100%.
Yeah. And number two, that bear ain't going to be standing close enough for you to hear it growl. You know, when it hears kids are coming, even if it's got cubs, it's going to get gone. So we talked to her. We get ready to go out. We get back down the road, and there's been no storms or nothing. There's a tree across the road right about where it was when I was talking to my son about that tree being in the road. I hooked my truck to it. I can't even pull it. But luckily, there's another way out. So I told my buddy, I said, well, I have to turn around and go out the back way. And we get up through there, and my son says, something's going on. I said, what is it? He said, your radio on the truck keeps kicking my phone off. The Bluetooth won't connect. Well, it's been connected all day. And I get to look, and then my dash cam that I've got, it says the SIM card's no good in it. Well, the SIM card's been in it since I bought it. I ain't never took it out. So I know the SIM card was working. So I asked my buddy, I stopped him. I said, have you got any electronic stuff going on? Crazy? And he said, no. Said, look, said, here's my phone. And he opened it up, and he's like, well, what in the world? And I've got a picture of it. It's little bitty pictures. I mean, hundreds of them, but they're so small you can't tell what they are. And his phone wouldn't cut off. It wouldn't go off of that screen. It wouldn't do nothing. It was froze onto that. And so I've had that go on. Once we got off the mountain, everything went back to working normal.
What? You're talking about the same stuff that a lot of us try to talk about and explain. And we're already at almost 2 hours. We're not going to go into the whole religious Nephilim thing or the spiritual thing.
What I think is on that with the electronics, we got a lot of quartz and crystal and that stuff here in the mountains. And, you know, there's magnetic anomalies all over the place. So is something like that what's causing batteries to drain? You know, there's so much other stuff that it could be. I just don't see how you can jump straight to this happened, so it's got to be Bigfoot.
Well, I would agree with that, except for I would say that, like, there are certain areas, like me personally, there's quartz the size of 4x4 sticking out of the ground around here. Mm-hmm. And whenever I walk through the woods, the battery on my phone, if it's 100%, it doesn't just drain. Yeah. So I'm not saying that, but I've experienced it whenever I'm out in areas and had activity. Mm-hmm. So I tend to think that there's something to it, but that's just my opinion. But okay, hold on. Gotta ask you a couple more things before we get off here, though. All right, this is going to be weird stuff, Tim. Just bear with me.
No problem.
Have you ever seen UFOs or ghosts? Have you ever been hit by lightning? Have you ever died and came back? All that. Have you ever seen Dog Man? And for the love of God, let's not go deep on the Dog Man. I know you're going to talk about the other people that you go out with, but have you seen other cryptids? Have you ever died and came back? Have you been hit by lightning? Have you seen ghosts? Do you have any reason to think that you might be tapped into the supernatural world more than other people?
I have been hit by lightning inside my house. It knocked me probably 15 feet through my house. As far as Dog Man, I've never encountered one. Bob and Dwight have. So I'll leave that there. I try not to say nothing that I've not experienced personally because, you know.
Good for you.
Yeah. UFOs, I have seen one. I was actually on my way to church to mow. And here where I live at, I have to drive by the airport. Way back past the airport, there's a place called Burning Town Gap. I'm coming around, I see something shiny, oblong like a tic-tac, and it's so shiny it almost looks white. And I'm like, it's a clear day, but it's sticking out. And I'm like, what in the world was that, you know? So I keep watching it. I'm driving and I'm watching it. Well, I get ready to go around the curve, and this end, the right-hand side of it, as I'm looking at it, stays put. It comes up to about a 45-degree angle. I go around the curve. When I get around the curve and I look for it, it's gone. I have no idea. That's the reason I say it's a UFO, because it's unidentified. I ain't saying that it was little green men or nothing like that. I'm just saying that whatever it was there, and then it was gone. And I mean, I could see it plain as day, because I probably watched it for 30, 45 seconds before I went around the curve, and it took off.
Well, let me ask you this. I mean, you know, apparently you've had a lot of stuff happen. What if you had to narrow it down to just one single encounter? What's the most exciting or frightening encounter that you've probably had?
The most exciting is probably when I got the good look at the one, because I finally got to see, you know, the one that took off so fast. I just got a quick glimpse of it. The one at Cage Cove, I only got to see part of it moving out behind the root ball. Mm-hmm. The one that Dwight took the picture of, it was so thick in there, all we could see was its head. So the one that I got to see completely is probably the most exciting.
Yeah.
The most frightening would either be when we had the bluff charge, or when I was by myself and the one growled at me 2 times.
Yeah.
And one other thing that I have seen lights moving through the woods.
Oh, yeah, the orb stuff. I forgot to ask you about that.
I was coming out of the same spot where the one growled at me twice, and not the same day. We was up in there deer hunting. My buddy let me out, and he drove my truck on around the road.
Keep going.
And so I come back out, and we just bought from Walmart some real powerful flashlights. I mean, they're super bright. And I get down there, and I see an orange light moving. I'm standing in a little old, where they had a log landing on an old logging road, and I'm looking down the way I had to go, and I see an orange ball of light about the size of a softball, and it's moving around, and you could tell that it was intelligent. It wasn't just zipping here, yonder, and about. Yeah. It was like it was looking for something. And I thought, well, what's Newsom done with that flashlight? I know he's got his good flashlight. I wonder why he ain't got it on. And so I stood there and watched it until it got dark, and I thought, well, I'll head on down to him. So I take my flashlight out and shine it down that way. Well, it disappears. I get down there and I whistle for him and all that stuff. I figured he's going to try to jump out from behind a tree and scare me or something, but he never does answer, nothing like that. So I walk on out and off the bank into the road where he let me out at. And then here he comes in my truck. He wasn't even nowhere around. And I load all my stuff up and we get ready to leave. And I told him, I said, I seen the strangest thing. He said, well, what was it? I said, there was an orange ball of light in the woods moving around, and I thought it was you, and you could have cut his throat. He said, I was on the phone talking to my wife, and something caught my attention, your rear view mirror, and below the road, orange ball of light come up, stopped in the middle of the road, and then went up into where you was at. So I have seen that. I have seen them. We was going in to drag a couple of deer out we'd killed, and we'd took stuff out and was going to go back and drag them, and it got dark on us. And we're walking back in, and on one of the ridges, there's a white light going back and forth. It'd go so far, turn around, go back, turn around, go back like that. And we get up there, and Daddy, we knowed we was the only people in the wood because we're the only ones at the parking area. And we'd been in there all day. And Daddy's like, well, what do you think it is? I said, I don't know, but it ain't getting my deer. So we went in and got our deer and got them drug out. So I've seen lights. Third time, me and my buddy, this might tell on me the way I used to be, but I've sitting a little bit after dark waiting on a big 15-point buck to walk out in this field because it was full moon. And I'm like, well, I'm going to hunt maybe a little longer than I should. But we were sitting there, and all of a sudden, a light on top of the ridge comes on. Well, there ain't nobody walked by us all day. So I've seen those lights 3 times.
Wow.
I told y'all, see, if you've never heard of Tim Dills, he's got a lot of stuff. And what needs to happen is we need to get Tim on with Dwight and Bob at some point so we can go over all of this stuff together, because they're covering a part of the country, kind of like Virginia, where I'm at. I'm in Southern Virginia, and there's not a lot of people talking about activity that happens here. Now, we have been highlighting like Alabama and Tennessee and Kentucky and stuff like that. But in North Carolina, a lot of activity, and I've been to Uwharrie 20 times, and I don't care for Uwharrie much, but the very western part of North Carolina, there's a lot of activity there, y'all. And these states don't get represented as much, and a lot of people don't go over all the details of everything that is happening there. And we got to get them on, because they come up to Virginia every once in a while. They're following the same kind of corridor that Anthony and I and people from our area are looking at, because when you actually get in the woods and you look for these things and you start getting the vocalizations and finding the tracks and the stick structure and everything, it's not that hard to kind of follow them where they're going. If you listen to people, certain people say the same things over and over again, and it kind of keys you in on who is seeing the same thing that you're dealing with. And we're all kind of working on the same path. And I'll tell you, from where, at least in my experience, from where like Mary Fabian and Kane and Eric are up there in Pennsylvania and Ohio, and then coming all the way down through to where I am in the southern part of Virginia, and going into North Carolina where Tim is, going into Tennessee, the areas of Tennessee where like Squirrel and Sherry and everybody is, going into the very northern part of Georgia, and going down into Alabama where Coombo, Greg, Mark Green is. I'm telling you, there's something about that pathway there, and we're all experiencing the same thing. I mean, we could stop and compare notes on this stuff. We're all seeing the same thing. We're hearing the same thing. We're talking to people that describe it the same way. But anyway, we've been 2 hours in, and we're going to stop here because I want to get Tim back, because he's just got a ton of stuff to go over. We're going to get Tim back if he's willing, and get Greg and Bob with him. And then you're going to hear other people that are going to corroborate all the stuff that Tim is talking about and that we're all talking about. Tim, you got closing thoughts on anything you want to touch on?
One thing, if we can get Bob and Dwight on, they have some of the best thermal footage from Virginia that you've ever seen. I mean, they've got good videos. And
I've seen some of the stuff that Bob posted, and it's great.
Yeah. Dwight's got one. I mean, it's walking up a ditch line. The guy asked us to come up and check it out because it's slapping the side of his house. And we get up there, and it's walked up the ditch line. And if I go down in the ditch, you're going to see about my shoulders. This thing you can see from from about right here, walking up that ditch line, going into that building. We've had good luck up in Virginia, and some, like I say, some of the best thermal footage that I've ever seen.
Well, one last thing, Tim. I know it seems like we're asking you off the wall questions, but this is
okay. Trust me, I'm used to it.
Well, we got a lot of us getting together and comparing notes and everything. So this is going to sound off the wall, but how do bees or wasps react to you? Do you get stung like everybody else? Do they ignore you? Are they no bother to you? What?
I don't get stung that often. I mean, hardly ever. Now, if I get in the Yeller's jacket, me and Dwight, where I was looking for my camera that had been lost for 4 years, we went back to look for it, and the tree split like this, and there was a Yeller jacket's nest in the tree. So we backed up and got into 2 on the ground, and luckily, me and Dwight didn't get eat up, but his poor dog did. But I do get stung, so but I try my best to stay as far away from them as I can.
How about with like dogs, like as far as dogs and stuff? Like if you go to somebody's house that you've never been to and they got a dog, do they, like, even if they're kind of mean, do they act crazy towards you, or are they usually calm around you?
They're usually pretty calm.
They love you.
My wife said they love you.
Well, though, the overall point that we're trying to get to is we're trying to determine, it's hard to put this into words and do it exact justice, but are there people that are naturally inclined, have some kind of different attribute to them, where either these things they realize that you're different and they show themselves to you, or they come to you? And then also that goes into the whole area. I'm sure you've heard people talking about, you get marked, like they know whenever you know, and they start showing themselves more to you and everything. We're trying to find a formula that kind of fits all this.
I think it's to me anyway, they know if you're a threat or not. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Even dogs know when somebody, they said if a dog don't like somebody, then, they can tell evil, and horses are the same way. Horses can tell good people from bad people. So I think they know just like any other animal does. And like I say, I've been around the ones here in my area. They don't leave. They're here year round. So I'm in there year round, and they're used to me coming in. So they know that I'm not going to bother them. And that's the reason, as quick as I could, I put my gun down so that they wouldn't even think that I was going to. Yeah. I think it's like any other animal. They can tell good from bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think a lot of it just comes down to what kind of person you are and how you handle the situation. Yeah. I mean, fight and flight is a real thing if you're dealing with a polar bear.
Yeah.
Is it a real thing if you're dealing with a booger?
I think whenever that one done the bluff charge, that was the only time I've ever put my hand on my pistol, because I didn't know what she was going to do.
Right.
But I think if they can scare you to where you run, it's like a cat and a mouse. If that mouse plays dead and don't show no interest, the cat loses interest. But if they're intelligent enough, which I know they are, they're intelligent enough to know that if they can scare the far out of you, more than likely you ain't going to come back. I think if you got them cornered, or if you had one that was maybe that was older and couldn't provide for itself as much as what it used to could, and that kind of stuff, that they would take, like any animal, they'd take the easiest meal possible.
Yes, sir.
So I think that, if that's the reason I ignore them when I hear them growl and yell and all that kind of stuff, because I'm not going to take off running. If it comes to me, we'll have that showdown when it happens. But I'm not going to take off running, giving it a reason to chase me.
I think if you run from one, if it wants you, you're just gonna die tired.
That's it.
If you want it, if we're being realistic, if you're talking about stuff like boogers and dog men out in the woods, if they wanted to get people, there'd be a lot of missing people.
A lot.
I mean, I'd be gone because I've been in that area several times. We all would. All three of us on here right now.
And that's the reason I don't think that I don't never do wood knocks. I don't do calls, nothing like that. All my encounters has happened in the daytime. I've never seen nothing after dark other than the lights and that kind of stuff. But all the rock throwing, everything like that's happened in the daytime. I just go in, sit down, be quiet, and I'm usually hunting is the reason I do that. But another thing is if you go in and sit down and be quiet, they know where they can come in from and go out without. If you're going up this holler and down that holler and over this ridge, they don't know where you're going next. So if you come in and sit down and let them come to you, then they know where their escape route is. They know where they can come in and do it safely and without taking any chances of being harmed.
I think that's a good point, whether they're trying to run you out of the area or whether they're trying to just sneak in and see you. Mm-hmm. If you give them the room to come to you, I think you got a better chance than you. I don't think you're going to just walk in and be able to walk up on one or sneak up on one, find one. That's,
not unless it wants you to.
Well, that'd be my point. I mean, that's like all these people talking about trying to hunt these things. I mean, I just don't think you're going to do it. But anyway, y'all, thank you for joining us. Tim, thank you for coming on. We're going to get you back on here if you don't mind. We're going to get you back on here. We're going to have a longer show with other people that can talk about all this same stuff.
Hey, before you close us out, once again, y'all keep Tiffany in your prayers. And look, please pray for Christy. Christy, if you're watching, we love you, sister. We'll be praying for you. Y'all, that's
true.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And big love, everybody. Once again, big love to all y'all.
Hey, and for everybody that's going to that Bigfoot conference down there in Alabama here, what is it, next week? At the end of next week.
Yeah, next Friday and Saturday in Anniston.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of y'all in chat, a lot of y'all that we know that are all going to meet up there and everything. That's really cool. Tell everybody I said hi. I won't be there. We'll be down in Alabama, though. Anyway, Tim, thank you for doing the show, brother. I appreciate it. Anybody, if you want to jump on the show, hit us up with the email or something like that. And give a big thumbs up for this. This was a good show, and I mean, we're going to run off this. We're going to have a sequel to this show. But anyway, and Squirrel, sorry you had to work so hard today and you couldn't jump on the show. I didn't really miss you, but everybody else did.
I mean, I said she was playing hooky. She's playing hooky, hooking or something. I don't know what she's doing.
And Kumbo couldn't get back on the show because his damn internet went down. I really wanted Kumbo on here to chirp in and ask all the questions. We'll get him on next time.
Yeah.
Anyway, Tim, thank you. Tell everybody bye-bye.
Appreciate you.
Appreciate it, guys. Thank you. And I'll come back anytime you'll have me. And if I can, if you ain't in enough groups on Facebook, look up Dirty South Squatching.
Yes, absolutely.
Definitely.
With the G on the end. We had two groups. The one that ended with the N was the private group, but then everybody wanted the N on it. So we got one with an ING on the end of it. So that's for everybody.
And Squatcher X, I think, is Dwight's channel on YouTube.
Yeah, I think it is. Carolina Bigfoot, if you want to check him out on TikTok.
Carolina Bigfoot on TikTok.
Is Dwight, and mine is on YouTube and TikTok. Mine is Tim Dills 13.
And Tim, when he closes us out, hang on backstage for just a few minutes.
Okay, no problem.
Yep. All right, y'all. See y'all later. Have a good Sunday. Thank you. Love you. Everybody take care. Be nice to each other, y'all. Talk to you later. Bye.
Squirrel.
Hey, y'all. Hey, Spencer. We're swapped
Hello.
around again.
Huh?
We're swapped around again. Hold on.
Yep. I know you do it on purpose.